Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Dusty Trails and Tall Tales podcast, where we celebrate the spirit of the Old West and keeping the Western tradition alive. Tonight, we have a special guest, Wren Nash, a new voice in Western fiction and a teacher who brings a fresh perspective to the genre. Wren, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background in writing and what got you involved in Westerns.
I've always loved to write, even since I was a little kid. I would just like make up stories in my journal, or whenever I was in high school, I was on the newspaper staff, and I just enjoyed writing in general, writing about like books that I'd read and reviewing them, writing feature sections, and then also just when I got older, it was like the parts of writing in college didn't bother me like they bothered everybody else. So just like that creative writing process, I always enjoyed that, and like visualizing, creating new characters, and bringing them to life. And I've always loved like just literature and things like that. And that's kind of what drove me to become a teacher. And throughout my life, I've had my father, Casey Nash, who has been an inspiration to me. And he's always loved Westerns. So we grew up watching Westerns and kind of like being around that background. We grew up on a farm and just like wide open space and just basically translating that to my life. And then always having that the westerns on in the background, and like Bonanza, Little House on the Prairie, things like that. I grew up watching and just loving, and I've definitely like taken some inspiration from my dad and in writing, and he pushed me a while back to just try to write myself in some western genre. And it's definitely like something new for me, but I've enjoyed it, and just working with him and kind of learning from him. So I'm definitely excited to be a part of Dusty Saddles Publishing and for the opportunity to write some new stories with some new characters.
That's good. What are some of your favorite westerns to watch when you were a kid?
Well, like I said, I really liked Bonanza. Like I would watch that in the background. I remember like I'd be homesick sometimes, and those would be some of the only things on TV, and I would just be laid up in the bed watching that. Or I loved Little House on the Prairie. Like we watched that all the time. Just kind of like that old setting, just the West, and it's just so different from what we live today. But just being able to like grow up in that background, I think has definitely helped me in writing in this genre and kind of visualizing it myself. So,
Yeah, I used to watch Little House on the Prairie a lot too with my sisters. That was their favorite one, but I always preferred Gunsmoke myself.
oh yeah, my dad was always watching Gunsmoke. He still has all those reruns like pre-taped on the TV. Every time I
Yeah,
go and visit him, he's got it on the television. So, it's easy to just kind of jump back in and know what's going on.
yeah. Did you watch any of the newer shows like the Hell on Wheels or Deadwood or any of those?
I haven't really watched anything like that's newer. It's mostly just reruns, like I said, just things that are like from me growing up. But I have watched some things like Western inspired that are more of a modern take, but it's nothing like the Old West.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your character, Scarlet Granger. And
Yeah, yeah. So Scarlet Granger is just kind of like one of those female characters that she started with like a really rough kind of experience that happened to her. Her sister was killed, and she kind of had a lot of vengeance. And so she was going after somebody and trying to get revenge on him, and really like in the process she learned like she really just wanted to keep people like protected, like take care of the people that couldn't really take care of themselves, women and children, and then other people, and kind of like working against some corrupt lawmen. And I think that that's just like such a good character arc for her. It really helped her grow, and it helped the character to evolve into some different storylines. And in some of the more recent books that I've written, she's kind of like gone off on her own, but she also started off with Jubal Stone. And if that's where one of the really good ones is Stone and the Blood Rose, where they kind of cross paths, and they end up kind of like they're sniffing each other out at first, but then they end up kind of working together. So it definitely helps her to kind of develop her character and lean more into like her good side rather than revenge. So she really just kind of seeks justice more than revenge at that point. And so like that kind of like helps her to develop into a person who really cares about the people around her, and she's not just kind of thinking of like the things that happen to her, and she's taking that as a motivation to help others who can't help themselves basically. So I think that she is a female character, and so there's not a lot of female characters in the Western genre, and I really enjoyed putting her in the Western genre because I know that in the past, it may not be as traditional, but it's kind of nice to think of like a character, like a strong female character that can kind of hold her own and seeks justice and is like equally respected by these like higher officials to really kind of like take care of things. So
Yeah.
I really enjoyed putting her into that world because I know that, traditional in a traditional sense, that may not have really happened a lot, but it's kind of nice to think of like in the Western genre, just making, I mean, it is literary, so just add
Yeah.
those elements of things that I think would be really empowering for women and younger people reading the stories and kind of pulling them into that Western genre as well.
Yeah. Well, she first appeared in the book Vigilante, Jubal Stone and the Blood Rose. How does she progress through that book and into the next one? And why did you decide to start your own series?
So when she started out, she was really just it's actually funny. I kind of like tie in my own background with her because she's a teacher. She kind of takes that disguise as like a teacher by day, vigilante by night. So it's
Yeah.
really like this really good hook, and it pulls you in from the beginning, and you discover like she's so sweet with the children, but she's like got all this hate in her heart and this vengeance, and it's like she turns it into justice basically. But in the beginning, she's very angry. She's like, no, I'm going to kill all these people. I'm looking for these outlaws, for these corrupt lawmen, and she seeks them out. And then throughout the time, she starts to kind of meet the people of the town that she's really like kind of disguising herself there and not giving away too much about herself. It's just kind of her place to rest while she goes at night and does what she needs to do to take care of business. But as the book goes along, she kind of meets some people around there that really kind of inspire her and kind of remind her of her sister who was killed. And then just the children and the people, and kind of discovering that they're also kind of vulnerable. And so she kind of develops this sense of like protection over them. And so anywhere she goes, she can kind of sympathize with the people around her that need help and maybe are not, they're being taken advantage of, or they're just not getting what they need, or they're not safe. And so she was kind of like leaning more toward that when she started to meet these people, and just like really her heart grew for them. And then she's like, she meets Jubal Stone, and she's like, this guy's trying to mess up everything I'm doing. He's trying, he's trying to ruin my plan. And then he ends up kind of like he's not so sure about her because she's the blood rose. Everywhere she goes, she leaves that rose, and it's every time that there's a kill or something going on, they get a little bit closer to her and closer to her, but she's just far enough away where they don't truly find her. But Jubal Stone's really smart. He finds her, and when he starts to meet her, he kind of starts to see what's going on, I think, and then it just kind of transforms from there. Like he just starts to kind of work with her, and things turn to for good. But there is a second book, so it does lead into the second book, and that one has like a really good spin. It continues on, and you meet some other characters that are really strong and help them get to vengeance for Kincaid. So it's a very well developed story from the first to the second book. And I think that Jubal Stone was such a good, like he was so important in that process to help her kind of like get her good name back, and it helped her in the the following books where it kind of goes off into its own series, and she has more of a better reputation, and it allows her to continue what she's doing, but in a more like legal kind of way, like following the law and not just being a vigilante as much. So
Well, what's it like co-writing with your father? How does that process work, and what's the experience like?
It's been really, really great. We usually we meet about the characters. We kind of talk about where we're wanting it to end and where we're wanting it to kind of progress, and we kind of take turns with it. Like, so I'll start it off, and then he'll take it and progress it further, and then I'll kind of read his notes and maybe like add in, hey, I think this would be good here. Like it's really a great writing process because we're both, I think, like-minded, but he's also got kind of that like traditional sense of western, so he can kind of be like, hey, this is what that is sometimes, like to kind of like help me because I am newer in the western genre, so there's some things that I'm still learning from him, and I'm still learning from like things that I watch or things that I read, and just trying to kind of get down that like lingo and stuff like that because I'm very much, I speak the way I speak, and I think Scarlett reflects the way I speak a lot of the time, but in a more like Southern sense. But it really has been great just working together and developing those characters and having advice from him on how we can further the storyline and what he thinks would help, and it's really been wonderful. So it's probably the easiest person. He's the easiest person to write with, I think.
Really?
Oh yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
Well, does he write Jubal Stone and you write Scarlet? You
Yeah,
go back and
yeah. So
forth.
I'm
You
sorry,
family
that
overlap.
definitely, when we're writing, usually my chapters will start off with Scarlett, and then his will be either a first person or a third person, usually leaning toward a third person perspective. But I think he even has kind of evolved in some ways and changed some of the formats of his writing as well. In the second book that we wrote together, he did a first person for Jubal, and I think that it's kind of comfortable to write in third person because that's kind of the style that he's used to. So I guess in some ways I kind of helped him like evolve in some ways because he kind of went to a first person for Jubal, and then he's done that with some other books. And I think that it adds a lot of depth to the character. And so
Yeah,
he enjoyed writing in that style. And I think, just working together and learning, like I'm younger and I have ideas, but they're not like in the traditional sense of ideas for the Western genre. And I think it was just a beautiful kind of merge in our story. So
yeah.
he would write the Jubals and I would write the Scarlets, but sometimes I would write some things for Jubal and he would write some things for Scarlet too. So
Hmm.
we kind of varied it up from time to time.
Well, that's good. It's another, excuse me. It's another thing that I like about your writing is that it's in first person, and you don't really see that style much anymore because, like you said, it's evolved mostly to third person. But I used to enjoy reading like Louis L'Amour wrote a lot in first
Mhm.
person, and so did a couple of other Western writers that I used to read. Lauren Estelman that has a great first person series called Gunman, I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that reading it in first person, it kind of helps you to visualize like as if you're that character and you're kind of putting yourself in their shoes in that moment in time. And it also kind of adds some depth. Like there's some things that you learn from what's going on that you may not have learned in third person because you don't really know, you can just assume things happened, but in a first person perspective, it tells like their thoughts and feelings. So it's really kind of more of a transparent look on it.
Yeah. Do you all of you that you've written so far is first person?
All of them so far have been first person, yes. And
Okay.
I have thought about doing a third person. There's times where I will do like a third person, I mean, like with prologue, things like that. But usually when it's the character and it's like starting off the story, I like to do first person. I am open to trying different things though, because
Yeah,
I know, there's a lot of people are interested in a lot of different things, but I would say that my personal writing style would be to do first person. So
yeah. That's my favorite to write in as well. My Wesley Quaid stories, I always write in first person from his point of view. But if I have like another viewpoint character, I'll switch to third person for that.
Yeah.
Of course, I kind of feel like I am Wesley Quaid, and I kind of like live vicariously through him with my
Yeah,
own work.
exactly. I mean, that's kind of why people read books, right? Just to kind of escape life and put themselves in a different kind of world. And that's one of the things too that I love about the genre, like writing the books, is doing different like world building and adding depth and imagery to the characters and just things that are going around them, just to kind of give
Yeah,
like a good feel of it. It just kind of puts the person reading into that area. So
yeah. Another thing too, I've noticed about first person, if you learn to write in that, it helps you when you go to third person because it a lot of times people that aren't familiar with the writing process, like the new authors, tend to head hop a lot if they write
mhm.
in third person. Whereas if you've learned to write in first person, it prevents that a lot because you're focused on the character. I think.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree with that.
So tell us about your first book in the series. Is the Vigilante Blood Rose Detective?
So
So
in
that's
this
your first
series,
solo series.
yeah, I'm so sorry I interrupted you.
Yeah.
I didn't hear the last part of what you said.
Oh, I said it's your first book in her solo series. So how many? What you
Yeah.
got planned after this one?
So, I definitely want to continue Scarlett's storyline. In the solo series one, the first book, she is actually, I don't want to give too much away, but she had to kind of deal with some consequences of what was going on back when she was working with Jubal Stone. But then after that's over, she kind of gets like this fresh restart, and she's working for the governor now, and she's working kind of undercover. And this is kind of like her first little trial test of if she can do something on her own. And she goes to a totally new place that she hasn't been, and she kind of has to like just learn the ropes of like being on her own and figuring out things again after, she worked with other people. Now she's on her own again, so she goes undercover and she's kind of investigating this area in Colorado, in Denver. All of the books so far have been set in Colorado. I grew up loving Colorado. I still love Colorado. I've been there and visited a couple times now, and definitely plan to go back. So this kind of, and it's like what goes along with what I was saying before, just putting myself in that world and helping, because it tends to flow easier. And so she's been in Colorado, she's in Denver, and she's kind of like investigating on some strange things going on at this hotel that is in the area. And it's kind of like Denver's high society. So it's definitely something she's not used to, definitely out of her comfort zone. Investigating people that she's never really been around. She's usually around like the poor of the poor, and now she's around Denver's high society. So, there's a lot of secrets and scandals and things going on, and she kind of gets involved with some people and has to learn who to trust, who not to trust, and then come to, the end of the story and have a conclusion there. So, this is her first true time alone after she works with Jubal Stone and after Kincaid. And now she's kind of like going and investigating different things going on in the state of Colorado, and she's working for the governor. So it's kind of undercover because she had some things happen in the previous books that people probably wouldn't be so happy to know she's working for the governor, but she kind of has to like earn her reputation back, I would say. And so in this book, that's kind of what she does.
So she's gone from a vigilante to sort of a private investigator now, huh?
Mhm. Yes, and there's kind of some elements of mystery kind of linked with the genre of Western, so it's kind of like a little crossover there, and
Yeah.
it's like her little rogue
Yeah.
storyline that starts off the new series, so
Well, I've read it and I really enjoy your first person writing style,
Awesome.
and I really like that the fact that it's a mystery, but it's
Hmm.
also a western. And I think when you do that a lot, adding a western to anything makes it better. So
Right, and it kind of pulls some different readers in maybe that, they may like the Western, they may like the mystery, they also might like that there's a female character who's the main character and kind of taking over things, and, I think it's just like a good draw in for several people who may be new to that genre, and, I think it's an easy read, it's easy read for people who are not used to reading those sorts of things, so
yeah, and it's a good book for somebody who's never read a western before to try their first western because it's elements of multiple genres. So it's a
right.
good one. So what are you planning next for this character?
So I do have some co-writes coming up with Robert Hanlon. That's one that we're working on. It's going to be also set in Colorado, and she's going to be working with U.S. Marshal Jake Timber, and they are going to be investigating an area, and it is going to be kind of like a mysterious person who's maybe linked to causing some deaths in the town. But they're going to kind of get down to the nitty gritty and find out that there's some other, like, more corrupt things going on. And she's no stranger to corrupt lawmen or corrupt people who are running towns. So I think that, her experience previously in other books definitely helps tie into this storyline as well. And working with another US Marshal and definitely a Marshal from a different area. I think that it just kind of helps her to evolve working with all these different people and having new perspectives for sure. Jake Timber is just like a gritty, gruff kind of guy. And then,
Hmm.
Jubal Stone, he's just kind of like a man's man type person. So it's definitely some different like mentors that she's working under.
Yeah. Is that book with Robert Hanlon going to be in this series, or is it
Mhm.
more in his series?
So it's going to be a Jake Timber, but it's going to be kind of like a crossover, and
Yeah.
it's going to be included in this Vigilante Blood Rose Detective series. So
Oh, cool.
it will further the series, but it is going to be a Jake Timber as well.
Yeah. Well, does Scarlett still keep working for the governor, or does she kind of branch out on her own?
So right now she's still working for the governor, but she is definitely open to branching out and possibly moving somewhere else in the future. She might be called somewhere else. That's kind of like a little bit of a teaser because, the storylines are still developing and things like that. But she's definitely planning to spread her wings and fly
Yeah.
and work with some other people. And I think it's going to be great for the character and definitely for the Western genre, just bringing in that female character and just making things fresh and new. I think it'll just be fun.
Yeah. Well, where does the inspiration for Scarlett come from?
Well, I would say mostly just probably like some books that I've read or shows I've watched since I grew up, like just kind of falling in love with these characters that kind of were vulnerable in the beginning and then their character just developed and they became stronger and kind of more independent. And I could honestly see so many people in Scarlet, just growing up, the people that are around me, the people that I've learned from, and also like characters that I've grown to love over the years, just kind of helped to develop her. And then I think that really when I had like the sense of who the character was going to be and how she was going to be, the writing is what kind of inspired her character development and the different parts that made her unique throughout the stories. She kind of just became her own person. So I think most authors, they visualize another person maybe they've met or read about or seen, and then they take that and then it develops into somebody else, its own
Mhm.
person. So I think that that's what's really cool about her is that throughout the stories, she's always evolved. She's always learned from her experiences. She's always helped, let that help her make her decisions and motivate her. And she's been able to admit like when she was wrong and when she took things too far and when she needed to kind of like dial it back and really think before making choices. And that's kind of part of like all of our growth. We start that way. Sometimes we just do things and then we learn later like that might not have been the best thing to do. you know and unfortunately in the West, when things happen you can't take it back. So
Yeah,
she just had to learn from those things, and I think that the people that she surrounded herself with and the people that helped her build her character really helped transform her. So I guess that's what I would say about her. She started as just kind of like somebody that I could look up to, and then she developed into her own person.
yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about your writing style and your writing process. When do you find time to write, being a teacher as well?
I find time to write whenever I get home, or, like a lot of the weekends are spent doing things like that. Sometimes I stay up late at night. I do a lot of my writing at night because I'm just a night owl and I don't like to sleep, I guess. I like to sleep, but I stay up way too late. But that's kind of like when my writing flows is when everything's quiet, I guess. And just being able to kind of think, and I start with the characters and I kind of decide like how many characters do I want in this story, and I kind of map them out. But they change as you write. Like I said with Scarlet, they evolve. So you start somewhere and then it just takes off. So that would be
Yeah,
really kind of my process as far as like creating the characters, and then obviously a setting. And what's funny is I think that being a teacher is one of the things that has helped me in my writing as well, because we talk all the time in class. I'm a first grade teacher, so I teach those things like parts of a book and characters and on the author and illustrator and things like that. So when I'm writing a book, I try to make sure that I cover all the main story elements at the beginning, like who's my characters going to be, where's my setting, what's my problem going to be, what's my solution. So I kind of think of it like a first grader, honestly, because that's what I teach and that's what I know. So when I'm developing a story, I try to make sure that I have all of those things lined up, and then the writing just kind of takes off and it fills in the gaps.
yeah. Well, do you outline extensively first, or do you just sit down and see where the characters take you?
I do outline like major events that I think would help the storyline, but sometimes I kind of outline it and then I just sit down and write it, and I will cross through some of the things that I had outlined before because I'm like, no, I don't think that's what going to work with what I'm doing now. And you have an idea and you have a plan, but sometimes you write and you come up with better ideas as you go. And I think that that's part of planning, is it's a plan, so it's not always going to
Yeah,
happen. So as you write the story, then things can change. And so yeah, I would say I sit down and I do make an outline, but the writing kind of takes off, and sometimes it changes a little bit of what's going on and some of the events that happen.
yeah. What part of the writing process have you learned from the most or improved since you started? Since you're relatively new as a writer.
I would say just kind of like creating characters that are more of like true to themselves, and sitting down and just kind of mapping that out has helped me. I would say that that improves the storyline the most, like having an idea of what kind of person my character is going to be. Um, just to know, like, this would never happen if my character is like that. So it kind of helps me to think about how the story is going to progress and how it's going to flow. So I would say, like, having a strong sense of your character in the beginning definitely helps you to have a stronger story.
Yeah. Well, how do you balance honoring the traditions of westerns while still writing for a modern audience?
I think that that is the biggest challenge. It's something that in my age, writing in a modern style is more natural for me. So a lot of times I kind of have to do some research, or I have to refer to some mentors like Casey Nash, my editors, and, like publisher, people like that who can kind of help me navigate that traditional sense of the Western genre and give me ideas, and maybe just tell me like, yeah, that idea is not going to work in this traditional area. Maybe go for something different. And it kind of helps me to have that perspective of like, I'm writing in a modern sense, but I'm still wanting to respect those Western traditions and stay true to that as well. So definitely like referencing those people, reaching out to people who are well versed in that genre, researching for sure. I've done a lot of research, even just kind of like mapping out places and settings and stuff. That teaches you so much. And looking into like the late 1880s and looking at things that were, happening around that time definitely helps to write in that style. And still, I still use the tone, the modern tone when I write, but I try to incorporate a lot of that Western lingo and tone as well. So it just helps to do your research and to reach out to people, and really just reading and watching Westerns and things like that, just being experienced with it helps a lot as well. Like, would this person say this or not? Sometimes you have to like ask yourself that.
What are some of your favorite westerns that you've read? Like, what are some of your writing influences?
I really have enjoyed a lot of like the Dusty Saddles authors, like Robert Hanlon's, definitely some Louis L'Amour, and obviously Casey Nash. I've read a lot of his. I actually started out helping him edit his books. In the beginning, I would edit some of them, and I've edited many other Western authors' stories at Dusty Saddles Publishing, and I've really just enjoyed all of them. They're all so different. Like I said, a lot of them are third person.
Yeah,
And so it is different. But I also like a lot of the frontier stories. And I think that's kind of what motivated me to do some of the like Colorado setting and that storyline there. But yeah, I really have enjoyed all of the people that have written for Dusty Saddles, and just getting a bunch of different genres and perspectives from them.
what's your favorite Casey Nash book?
Is it bad to say the one that we wrote together? I don't know. He's such a good author. They all kind of blend together because they're so like, the character is so true to himself. And, like just Jubal Stone is such a character. Like,
Yeah,
it's so easy to incorporate Scarlett and Jubal together, and so I think I have to say, just because we wrote it together, and it's kind of more of like that memory and that experience of writing a book with my father that really kind of nails down that that's my favorite. But I think that all of his books are so good, and I read some of the ones in the beginning, and I've read some recently, and like his writing has developed so much, and it's so easy to read them. So yeah, I would say honestly the Vigilante book.
yeah. So, are you planning 100 books in this series like he has in the Jubal Stone?
Oh my goodness. My dad's an overachiever. I think with my job and working full time, I definitely have a little bit of I'm not able to always sit down and do as much as I would like to. And but I still plan to further the series along and do some more co-writes. And I'm looking forward to doing some more co-writes with Casey Nash, as well as some other authors, hopefully in the future. And I definitely want to continue this standalone series. And I don't know about 100, but you know, that would
Yeah,
be awesome. That would be a dream.
yeah. Well, what is it about westerns that why write westerns and not another form of story? Why do
I
you like
think there's
westerns?
I think there's just like something exciting about writing something that's a little bit out of my comfort zone. and trying to add that challenge of pulling in readers who might not read Westerns. And one day, hopefully, it will kind of evolve the Western genre in a way, not to change it too much, but just to kind of like appeal to some people that, because I want people to continue reading Westerns because I think they're just like the heart of just our bones of America, and just I think that it's a wonderful genre for people to grow to love, and I think that some people just need a little bit of something to appeal to them, and maybe making it modern sometimes can help them to be more motivated to read it. But still, like I said, trying to merge like that traditional Western with some more modern elements and really adding that challenge of appealing to more people like my age, more women, people who aren't mostly like as likely to read the stories. I want to pull them in because I think that westerns are so fun and exciting, and there's definitely a lot that you can there's so much that can go on. I mean, you look at Casey Nash and all the 100 books in the series. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy because me sitting here thinking about it, I'm like, I don't even know if I could have 100 ideas with this one character. But really, like, you have to start somewhere and just keep going, and then you find out like you had all these ideas under your belt all along, but they just have
Yeah.
to evolve. So you never know until you start, really.
Yeah. That's one of the things I asked him was, how do you have all these different ideas? Where do you get them from?
Yeah, and I think that, like, growing up, like, our background, especially his background, because he grew up riding horses a lot and doing all of that, and we had that background as well because of him, which I'm so grateful for, and, just continuing that lifestyle, really. I mean, we live right across the street from each other, and we have basically like a homestead that we have together as a family, and like my family and my little family and our big family, and just kind of like doing life together and slowing down in those moments, and getting back to like the traditional ways of living, like just
Yeah.
homesteading itself is so rewarding. And I think that a lot of that kind of like brings you back into that old style and brings you back into those days, and it can be motivating for sure. And I would definitely say just having him as a role model and inspiration has helped me to kind of fall in love with the genre.
Yeah. Well, being that you're a teacher, do you see any of like the kids you're teaching or younger students that are interested in westerns?
I have seen some kids, like we have some stories in the library that are a little bit, they're kind of like elements of Western, but they have to be more appropriate for kids. So there's not as big of a selection. I will say, even just today, I was reading the Magic Schoolhouse or Magic Tree House to my kids. We read those books every year. We read the whole series. And the one that they're reading right now is the Ghost Town one, and it's talking about being in the Wild West. And they just watch, and they're like, and they're like, a ghost, and it's just their eyes are just full with wonder. And it's such a good opportunity for me to kind of like explain to them, yeah, like this was the Wild West and this is what happened. And it has like the dates and the setting and everything. And they're just like, they're like, is that when you were born? And I'm like, no, because they have no sense of age and things like that.
Yeah.
But it's really fun to watch them experience things for the first time as kids. And on another note, with some coworkers, I know of some people that I work with that really enjoy westerns and actually have read our books, and they loved them. And one lady, I was like in the hallway one day watching the kids come down and go to breakfast, and she said, "Girl, you left me on a cliffhanger." I was like, "I'm so sorry." And she's like, "But then I just downloaded the next book and started reading it." And I'm like, "There you go. That's what you need to do. Just remember
Yeah.
there's always something else that comes next."
Well, what advice would you give someone who wants to start writing but isn't sure where to start?
Just start. That's what I would say. Just pick up a pencil or pick up your iPad or pick up your computer or a notebook, whatever you need to just start. And don't be ashamed of creating new characters and thinking of somewhere else. And I think that part of it is people are just kind of like, they're almost kind of embarrassed to open up, like be creative around people. But I think that people need to explore their gifts and really challenge themselves to get out of their comfort zone. Start with thinking about the people in your life and thinking about like strong people in your life that motivate you and somebody that you could maybe base a character off of, or some of the things they say. Some things I know, like there's this one part in our second book that me and my dad wrote together, The Hunt for Kincaid, where it talks about Scarlett's in the kitchen and her mom has made biscuits and tomato gravy. Well, that's something that my mom did. That's something that we grew up with, homemade biscuits and tomato gravy. Like that's not something that people these days probably know anything about. But that is what I grew up with. And just kind of putting your own experiences into a story, that's what's going to help you really develop your characters and your storyline. And just putting pieces of you and pieces of the people that you love in your stories is going to help you.
Yeah. When you look back at where you started, what are you most proud of so far?
I'm just proud that I picked up a pencil and I started, because
Yeah.
when I grew up, like I always wrote things in my journal. I would try to like write little creative stories and I'd be so embarrassed of them. And even though I shouldn't have been, but it's like being timid and shy and not really wanting to like open up that part of yourself to everybody. And just kind of putting yourself out there, it helps you to just check that at the door and just do what you can and do what you love and what you enjoy. So I would definitely say that's kind of what got me started. And also, like I said earlier, the push that my dad kind of gave me, he's like, look, you're a good writer. You need to write a book. And he's
Yeah.
like, I'll write one with you. Like, let's do this together. So, having people in your life that encourage you and motivate you is also really important.
Yeah. Well, what do you want our viewers to know about you, and where can they find more about your books and upcoming projects?
So I write for Dusty Saddles Publishing, and my latest book, The Vigilante Blood Race Detective, is on Amazon right now. So definitely feel free to find that and purchase that and read it. It's definitely a fun read with a standalone with Scarlett Granger. If you're in for a character that is fiery and has grit, but also just can hold her own, that's definitely a great tale for you to read. Can start with Jubal Stone and the Blood Rose as well, because that's like kind of her foundation and where she started. But I definitely plan to continue with Dusty Saddles Publishing and continuing the series and doing some more future co-writes. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah. Do you have any social media where viewers can follow you, or?
I do. I have Wren Nash on Facebook, and that has like my upcoming projects and just kind of like some links to Amazon where you can purchase the books and see kind of my catalog there. So that is Wren Nash on Facebook.
Ren, this has been a really great conversation. Thank you for taking the time to visit with us and sharing your perspective. It's always encouraging to see new voices carrying the genre forward, and I look forward to seeing where your writing takes you next.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.